question is about the fourth subdivision of this Dhamma Anupassana Satipatthana, Bhujanga Bhava, Bhujanga division. Bhujanga, as you all know, means enlightenment factors. Bhujanga means enlightenment factors, and there are 7 enlightenment factors that we have already mentioned. Sati Sambhojan, mindfulness, Dhamma Vijaya Sambhojan, investigation of the Dhamma. Then Viriya Sambhojan, effort or energy. Then Piti, rapture. Then Passaddhi, tranquility or peace, peacefulness. Then the 6th is Samadhi or concentration. And the 7th one is equanimity or upeka. Upeka or equanimity. There are 7 enlightenment factors. As I often mention, due to short of time, we cannot go everything in detail. And to give you all a chance to ask questions, we usually give the discourses briefly. So let us go through again since the question arises. Out of these 7 Sambhojana, the first 3, meaning Sati Sambhojan, Dhamma Vijaya Sambhojan, and Viriya Sambhojan, these are the main, and Pali we call Karaka factors. Karaka means working factors, the most active ones, that we must make use of it in our meditation. The same thing Buddha explained, as I often said. Buddha, he has omniscient knowledge and he can read the inherent tendencies of his audience, and he can give the discourses in many ways. Yes, he's Dhammasami, he's the owner, he's the authority of his teaching Dhamma. So he used many tactics. And this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, in the introduction instruction, he said, Adapi Sambhajano Satima. In Bhujanga section, he said, Sati Sambhojan, Dhamma Vijaya Sambhojan, Viriya Sambhojan. These 3 factors are same. In Mahasatipatthana Sutta, he said, Adapi. Pali what Adapi means, ardently, means you must make strenuous effort or energy. And that is in Bhujanga section, it comes under Viriya Sambhojan. And Mahasatipatthana Sutta, he mentioned as Adapi. Then Sambhajano. Pali what Sambhajano means clear comprehension of the object you are observing. That is in Bhujanga, it is Dhamma Vijaya Sambhojana. Not just noting, only the beginner, just noting rising or falling and walking, left step, right step. This is just to train the meditator and the exercise to be familiar with the exercise. But later on, as you become familiar with the practice, you should investigate the Dhamma. That's why now most of you, we are encouraging to investigate the Dhamma, so that you clearly comprehend your object. What do you mean by rising and falling? What do you mean by taking the steps as left step, right step, or when you know sitting and touching? So that is in Bhujanga, Buddha described as Dhamma Vijaya. Paliva Dhamma Vijaya means investigation of Dhamma. And Bhujanga, he presented the Sati mindfulness first. In Mahasatipatthana Sutta, he bring this effort first. First you must make effort to be mindful. For what? You make effort to be mindful so that you clearly comprehend your object. That's why I said, and put these, out of these 7 enlightenment factors of Bhujanga, the first 3 is real working factors. We must make use of that as working factor. As Buddha also emphasized in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta as Adapi Sambhajano Satima. It's the same meaning, only wording and the way Buddha give instruction different, because the inherent nature of the audiences differ from place to place. That's why he used many tactics, but the same meaning. Now, let us go a little bit detailed into these enlightenment fighters. The first one, Sati Sambhojjhanga, enlightenment fighter of mindfulness, how to develop mindfulness. That's what you all are doing. You establish 4 foundations of mindfulness. You contemplate on 4 foundations of 4 objects. Kaya, Vedana, Citta, Dhamma, Kaya Nupassana, Satipatthana. In sitting meditation, you either note rising, falling of the abdomen, or sitting, touching of the body. Or in walking meditation, right step, left step, lifting, putting down, lifting, moving, putting down. Or whatever the object arrives through 6 sense doors. All these are the 4 foundations of mindfulness that we have been explaining in detail. So by practicing these 4 foundations of mindfulness, you are establishing or developing the fighter of mindfulness, Sati Sambhojjhanga. And number 2, Dhamma Vijaya Sambhojjhanga. How do you develop Dhamma Vijaya or Dhamma investigation? I have often quoted the Buddha mentioned in the very first discourse, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and even in this Mahasatipatthana Sutta, and the 4th division, Dhammanupassana, the 5th subdivision, Sajjabhava, he mentioned. Dhamma Vijaya or investigation of Dhamma means you must understand the Four Noble Truths. Understand theoretically as well as you must penetrate it with your own personal intuitive knowledge, insight knowledge. I have many times mentioned enlightenment or whatever you call it, attainment of jnana or wisdom means realization of the Four Noble Truths. So in the first Four Noble Truths, Buddha first lay out the gross sufferings as jati-pi dukkha, jara-pi dukkha, vyadi-pi dukkha, marana-pi dukkha, abhyehi sambhyogo dukkha, piyehi vaibhyogo dukkha, yampecha nalapatitam-pi dukkha. That I have many times explained, and you all are familiar. This is mentioned in the Dhammacakka as well as this Mahasatipatthana Sutta. The first truth is the noble truth of suffering. Jati-pi dukkha, to be born, to take rebirth is suffering. That I have many times is explained in detail. Jara-pi dukkha, to decay, to get old, aging is suffering. Marana-pi dukkha, of course. Sabbe bhayanti machuna, all beings are afraid of death. But we have to die. And death is suffering. Marana-pi dukkha. Abhyehi sambhyogo dukkha. To come into association with things either living or not, which is not conducive to our comfort and pleasantness, is suffering. And to be parted with living or not living things, the one we love, we cherish, is suffering. Piyehi vaibhyogo dukkha. Yampeca nalapatitam-pi dukkha. And life, to wish, to hanker after the things which we cannot get, or for the things which we cherish, we cannot get. All these are suffering. And in conclusion, as a brief statement or to cover everything, in the first noble truth, Buddha says, Sankhitena panchupara nakana dukkha. Briefly speaking, this group of 5, what we call a being or a person, that is constituted in 5 aggregates. Panchupada, pancha means 5. Upadana means 5 aggregates of clinging. We cling to these 5 aggregates. Briefly, nama and rupa, if you elaborate 5 aggregates as I, mine, and my atta or my ego. That is the cause of every suffering he has laid out. Jadipi dukkha, jarapi dukkha. Arise because of these 5 aggregates. He says, Sankhaitena panchupara nakana dukkha. Briefly speaking, these 5 aggregates of clinging are suffered. So what must we investigate? The answer is out. Buddha said, Sankhaitena panchupara. To understand the first noble truth of suffering, we must contemplate on these 5 aggregates. How? Clear comprehension, samajanya. To be clearly understood what it meant by this panchupara nakan. Briefly speaking, a person or a being is just made up of psychophysical complex, mental factor and rupa or material factor, mind and the matter. And if one wants to elaborate for better understanding, Buddha elaborated into 5 aggregates, these nama and rupa. Rupa is physical body or material phenomena. Nama is a mental phenomena, and mental phenomena is composed of 1. Here he mentioned on 1 citta and 3 cetasika. So Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara is cetasika, mental factor. Vijnana is consciousness, citta. These are Paramatha Dhamma, the ultimate realities. And Abhidhamma Buddha mentioned 189 or 121 cittas, then 52 cetasikas. That we don't need it in actual practice. If we can discern mental factors into 4, 3 cetasikas, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, and 1 citta, Vijnana. This 4 mental group, mental aggregate, and 1 rupa, and that become 5 aggregate. Because this being the cause of the noble truth of suffering. So we must, in our meditation, we must be able to identify in our practical meditation or exercises. And that is what is meant by Dhamma Vichaya, investigation of Dhamma. So how do you verify these nama and rupa or 5 aggregates in your meditation? Regarding rupa, the first aggregate. In Abhidhamma, if you have studied, some of you may have studied Abhidhamma, Buddha described 28 types of material phenomena. Here we don't need it practically. If you can identify rupa with 4 gross elements, Mahabhuta, Patavi or Earth element, Apo or water element, Tejo or heat element, Vayu or wind element, that is more than sufficient. For you must be able to identify rupa with these 4 gross elements, earth, water, fire and wind. Characteristics are many times explained in detail. Characteristics of earth. Earth is element of extension. Hardness, softness, heaviness, lightness is the characteristic of this Patavi Dhatu or earth element. Then, element of cohesion or trickling, fluidity is water element. Then heat element, and then element of motion, Vayu Dhatu, wind element. So these things you must be able to identify And sometimes you must investigate in your meditation. That is, you are developing Dhamma Vijaya Sambhojika. You are noting rising, falling. Rising, falling means element of motion. You are verifying the why or dhatu of one element. So also in walking meditation, when you are noting the steps, either left step, right step, or lifting, putting down, lifting, moving, putting down. That is element of motion, why or dhatu. But here again, let me remind you, these four gross elements they are inseparable. They arise together and they cease together. Only in order of predominance we can point out or isolate one single element. But we cannot, in practical, we cannot isolate because they cannot exist. They are sahajata conditions. They arise together. They must arise together. Ati, Pachaya, and many foundational fighters. They exist together, they arise together, they pass away together. Only in order when we say Patavi Dhatu, other elements are Dhatu in proportion at that time or on that occasion. Patavi is predominant. I often example, like if you see in a news headline that Singapore Prime Minister visited Malaysia, that doesn't mean the Singapore Prime Minister will come alone. He'll be accompanied by the retinue of ministers, army generals, or media people. But he being the main figure, the news headline will just say Singapore Prime Minister visited Malaysia. So when we say Patavi Dhatu, Patavi is the main predominant element in that composition. But the others are also present. They cannot be separated. And when the tears show down from the eye, or when you are sweating, or when you go to the toilet for urination, all these are apo dhatu or water element. Their cohesion property and trickling is a characteristic of this apo dhatu or water element. And the next is heat element. The two is easily understandable when you feel yourself or when you touch other things. Sometimes you feel cool, sometimes you feel warm, sometimes you feel hot. These are all heat elements in different stages. Actually, they are the same phases, the different phases of the same element, like the two phases of the same coin. Heat and cool is the two extremes of this temperature. So this is a heat element. So this is how you identify the material aggregate or the matter. And let us go to this nama or mental states. As I have mentioned, and the Abhidhamma Buddha even enumerated the citta or consciousness into 89 or 121 cittas. And Cetasika he classified into 52 types. Here in the five great gates, we mention 3 Cetasika mental fighters and 1 consciousness or citta as a whole one. Because they arise together, this is they accompany, these mental fighters as to accompany, they are called universals, they always accompany. The other mental fighters are occasionals. They accompany the mind from time to time. For one consciousness to complete its achievement of the function, these 3 must act together. That's why they are mentioned together as 4 mental fighters. Actually 3 mental fighters and 1 mind. 3 mental fighters are Vedana, feeling or sensation, translated as feeling or sensation. Sanya, perception. Sankhara, volition. And these are 3 mental fighters. So out of 52 Cetasikas, this Vedana and Sanya is isolated as individual ones because they are important and they are, as I say, compulsory or universals. And the remaining 50 Cetasika is represented by this Sankhara, because the other Cetasikas are derivatives of Sankhara. So these three we call mental fighters or Cetasika. And when they act together, they complete the achievement of knowing or awareness of the object, which we call Vijnana in Pali, and in English they translate as consciousness or the mind. I want to draw your attention about this Vedana. Vedana, for easy understanding, we usually translate as sensation or feeling. Actually, it begins with the sensorial impression. When an object is presented to our sense door, like when you see a sight or a visual object, the first it must impinge on the eye sensitivity, and that what we call phassa, contact. And the feeling means that sensorial impression, the impression that is impinged on the sensitivity tissue of the corresponding door. And that is what is meant by Vedana. That's why the consciousness cannot achieve its function without the presence of Vedana. Though we translate as feeling, also before feeling arises, there's impingement coming in contact, like the object presenting to the eye door. And when this is reflected in the sensitive tissue of the eye, we call Jakku Pasada, eye sensitivity. That contact starts with the Vedana, sensorial impression. And that is the beginning. And this gives rise to feeling of, because the sanya, the next action is sanya or perception. Perception as it has experienced and registered in its memory, it interprets as light of what is seen at that moment is either a human being or an animal or a deva or a male or a female, pretty or ugly, so on. All these discriminations are by the sanya or perception. That's how they work. First, the object must impinge on the sensitive organ, that is, we call dwara, or the we are endowed with. So regarding this Vedana, how to investigate, we have already explained in the last talks. Vedana, to put according to his audience, he classified into many ways, but what we need to know in our practical meditation is mainly dukkha Vedana, unpleasant sensation, because they are easy to be experienced. Then the rest, if we know 3 is quite enough for practical meditation. Dukkha Vedana is unpleasant sensation or feeling. Sukha Vedana is pleasant or pleasurable sensation. And the third one is Adukkama Sukha Vedana, neither pleasant nor unpleasant sensation. And variously translated as Upekha Vedana or neutral feeling or equanimous feeling, all these are same. But practically it is hard to detect or experience it because they are very subtle. Mostly what we can experience in practical exercise is this dukkha vedana, unpleasant sensation like aches, pains, stiffness, numbness, etc. And when they are at the height of experience, it is give us aversion or dislike. That is why it is called dukkha vedana. But when they gradually fade away or pass away, they become pleasant sensation that we usually miss to note it. Actually, we must recognize it when this dukkha vedana, unpleasant sensation pass away. Then this pleasant sensation is taking place in this place. When sometimes we don't even think of these sensations because they are so subtle and equanimous, and that is adukkhama sukha vedana. But this too is subtle to know exactly. So if you can know or make a mental note of dukkha vedana, it's good for practical exercise. So sanya or perception is when you are labeling, making a label of the object you are noting with conventional terms as rising, falling, or left step, right step, lifting, putting down, and so on. These are sanya or perception. And the next mental factor is sankhara. Sankhara is commonly translated for easy understanding because it can easily be recognized as volition or intention, but it has much more wider meaning. And some you may find in some books they are translated as mental formations, meaning all other physical and mental activities arising from these motives or intentions that are included in the sankhara. Anyway, in your practice, if you can note or make a mental note or aware of the intentions and volition or motives, and that is you are noting sankhara. So please make effort to catch these intentions in your practice, because this is too important in the sense that because it helps you to develop the second insight, pachya parikha jnana, the inside knowledge of cause and effect relationship. The first one is being able to identify mind and matter. This is the first insight we call nama rupa paricheda jnana, the discriminating knowledge between mind and matter. And the second knowledge, by noting these intentions, one can realize the pachya parikha jnana, the second insight of cause and effect relationship. And these two are very important as they form the foundation for higher insight knowledges to arise. So they must be clearly experienced, not only once or twice, if possible repeatedly, so that you be firmly established in these insights. Those who have participated in many retreats may have experience. Some teachers may even ask you to make a mental note in detailed intentions. But even if you cannot, please be able to be aware of the major intentions, like before you change from sitting to walking meditation, note the mind. Mind and the mind, the intention arise first. So intention to get up, intention to get up, and get up slowly, getting up. And don't immediately walk, then note standing, touching. And when the intention to walk arises, please note again, intending to walk and walk. And when you reach the other end, when you stop standing, touching, and before you turn back, when the intention to turn arises, please catch that mind as intending to turn, and turn. And again, before walking, intending to walk and walk. Because the body itself cannot do anything. It is another instruction of the mind that it is moving about. So you know the cause, and because the mind intends to get up, the body gets up to get up. Because the mind intends to walk, it has to walk. Because the mind intends to turn, the body has to turn. So this will be clearly perceived by paying more attention on these intentions. And that is, we have mentioned in one of our talks, Chula Sodapana It can even close the door to apaya realm. It is so beneficial to completely understand by your own intuitive insight the cause and effect relations of all phenomena. So also in Dhammanupassana, when you are noting the object that arise through 6 sense doors, as seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. The same principle apply, and you can identify mind and matter, or even 5 case, or cause and effect, or even Four Noble Truth, and these notings. And that is what is meant by Dhamma Vicaya, or investigation of Dhamma. For instance, when you are noting the sight seen as seen, the visual object or the sight, and your eye organ is rupa. The seeing consciousness that arises nama. Just nama and rupa, there's no I or no person involved in it. And because of this visual object and the eye organ is the cause, then seeing consciousness or seeing arise. Seeing means it's by the mind. It's a mental phenomena. See, that's why it is called seeing consciousness. And ordinary usage, we just see seeing. Seeing means seeing consciousness. Mean the mind is that sees. The eye is just instrumental. The object in the eye is rupa, and the seeing consciousness that arises nama. The eye and the object is a cause, and the seeing consciousness that arises as a result, cause and effect relationship. How will you investigate the 5 aggregates and see? The visual object or the sight and the eye organ is rupa khana. It's a material phenomena, rupa khana. And the sensorial impression, or the moment we see the visual object, we decide whether it is pleasant object or unpleasant object, like pretty or ugliness or frightful, etc. That is Vedana. And identifying this object seen as something like male or female, a human or animal or a deva is Sanya Khanda. And making effort to see is Sankhara Khanda. And these, when complete, the function is complete, and the seeing consciousness arise is Vijnana Khanda. So 5 aggregates you can identify, and the act of seeing, when you note seeing. So also when you're noting the sound as hearing, the sound and the ear is rupa khanda, physical phenomena or material phenomena. And the moment you hear, you identify as pleasant sound or unpleasant sound is Vedana Khanda. And when you identify according to your own memory as a dog barking, a bird singing, or a clock chiming, or somebody playing music, that is Sanya Khanda. And the paying attention or making effort to hear or to listen is Sankhara Khanda. And technical term we call Manasikara, you focus the attention. So that is Sankhara Khanda. And that completes the hearing process, and hearing consciousness is achieved. And that is Vijnana Khanda. So that's how these 5 aggregates are verified, and every note, act of noting. And that is what we call Dhamma Vicaya Sambhojjhanga.